started with this special meeting thing. I mean, there's two things that we need to discuss. One's pretty straightforward, and that is we need to get animal control back on an agenda to vote on the animal control piece. So we'll want to do that whenever we meet next, whether it's the regular time or next week or whatever. So that's that one. Public Works. Is that a piece, I mean, Councilman Winnicke, is that far enough along that we should have that on our agenda also?
That would be totally up to the committee. I am sure that down the road sometime, based on conversation of others after the meeting, that it will probably be a matter of discussion, but it's not far enough down the road that I consider it an emergency, you know, if people vote their opinions, and I don't know yet myself what all the specifics would be. I mean, you know, we knew the library X amount, we knew animal control X amount. I know you haven't voted on it yet, but I have seen no amount or what would be covered or what all of the revenue funds would come. I mean, this was just direction to the staff and the architects and stuff to go ahead. That's what the city's going to do. If lost funds go into it, you know, if lost funds don't go into it, it'd be property taxpayers. That is not part. I'm just speaking for myself. It's not an emergency. I think it could be done in regular, but because there was a mistake made, if you want to have a special session to talk about it next week, basically it would just be a meeting where you talk about it to vote on. You think if somebody determines a later date lost funds are definitely going to be used, where you could vote what your opinion is if it's appropriate or not.
Okay. Yeah, Lisa.
On December 2nd last year, 2010, we voted on the library. That was moving forward, but the fire station, they still hadn't found a location. We do know where the location is of the public works facilities. Time check we voted on last year on December 2nd. We had no location. There was no committee recommendation or at all since the time. So I think precedent has been set here that we don't have to have a location. We don't have to have, you know, a discussion officially by the council. It's already been in the paper. The mayor is talking about using lost funds. So
on that fire station and the rec center, so I'm assuming that since there wasn't location at that point, there wasn't a set amount either.
Right.
Is that correct?
Right.
It's up to the committee. I'm saying, just sitting here, this is all your decision. I'm just saying, it's just a matter of, do you feel it's an emergency, it's something you need to discuss and vote on right away, then you can call a special meeting next week if you desire. If you think they can wait until your next meeting, which would normally be 2 months from now, then you can do it without a special meeting. But that is up to the committee to decide.
I'm fine with compromising and doing a special meeting, not doing it tonight and having it, you know, publicized more. But 2 months is just stretching it an awful lot. So I'm fine with compromise and having a special meeting like Winnicke, Chuck suggested.
I don't feel comfortable having a meeting when we don't have information.
Isn't the location already been established? Did the council vote to have it built in the location it now fits in?
Yeah.
Yes, we have
So
We have a location, right? That's not what Gary was bringing up.
Yeah, because that's further along than it was on the fire
the point
station.
he was making.
So I think what we need to decide is next time we get together and discuss and vote, do we want both animal control and public works on that agenda? So I guess open that up for what you guys think.
I think they need to be on the agenda for next time for discussion if we have information provided for us.
And so I'm no government legal eagle here. So as far as wording on that agenda, I mean, can it be discussion and or vote?
Yeah, discussion,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So we might as well put
necessarily
both
have to
on.
vote on something
Right.
at that time.
Okay, so
We're
let's,
just still,
so we know on animal control that we can vote on that, because that's on the matrix and we need to weigh in on there. on that one. So that one's, so let's, on that agenda, we want to vote on animal control, and we want discussion and/or vote on public works.
Can I ask a question? Do you normally have presentation of any sort, or do you ask?
We've had, in the past, we've had, it's been all over the board, quite honestly. We've had some pretty in-depth presentations on some of the programs.
But not on the property acquisition.
Right, and
We
some of
have-
them it's,
You know,
just kind of common knowledge type thing.
There really isn't anything any information to bring that we don't already know. There's a $13 million gap, and they need to make it up with local funds. And do we think that that was the intent of the voters, to use the local option sales tax? And that's
We can have that
basically what we've
discussion.
been doing, from the beginning.
Okay, so we'll put those on, and then the other question
But I
will
don't
just
think
be...
it's right to the public to be saying discussion and/or vote. I think that there should be discussion and vote. Because some people will want to weigh in, oh, there's something else too. I want to-"
Then I think the next question is when? I mean,
Yeah.
Is it necessary? Because, I agree with Ms. Gazella that, when I first came on this, that kind of was bothersome that the council took action after we did or before we did it. As an oversight, it didn't seem right to me. But they've set the precedent. They've said this is what we're going to do. Is it really truly necessary for us to rush into scheduling a meeting next week, and should we just allow it to occur at the next regular scheduled meeting?
Okay, so on those two agenda items, let's have those on the agenda.
So are we
Let's
doing
just-
and/or, or are we, how are we wording it?
Let's just go vote on both,
Let's get it done.
and
Just
then
if the public does come out, they know about it, then they don't have to wonder, is it going to drag on again, or, then the decision's going to be made.
And then let's, I think the other thing we want to try to tie down, I know it'll help in the way I would vote, and it's kind of been the pattern that this committee's taken the last few years. So I think an important thing, we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but I think something we need to address too is on that, I guess what I would call that homeowner side, does the city feel that there just aren't any other gaps that are going to rear their head going forward? So I think
Right.
that's an important
Yeah.
piece that we need to know to be better informed to vote on that.
Yeah.
Given that there haven't been any new programs developed, I would hope that
Yeah,
any need.
yeah, it's a matter of-
There's a
generally-
lot of gaps, they're just not addressed.
Well, another question would be at that point, is that something that, since Joe O'Hare is in position, is that something he's had the opportunity to weigh in on? With regard to, because I know prior to that, city staff drew, and other city staff do. I don't know if it's something that Joe's had the opportunity to take a look, weigh in on, because he's got a different perspective because of his background.
Is it possible to schedule somebody?
Do you want to, what I hear you asking for is, from someone like Joe Horn, which would make sense, an update or a status on the completion of the program?
Well, I think what we had talked about, and this gets back to a meeting that where Elizabeth and I had a discussion about this at one of the past meetings. What are gaps that are occurring that we may not be seeing that this money may be fit for, to be utilized to benefit residents?
Yeah, 'cause I think this committee is always,
What are we missing?
I think this committee's always taken the position that homeowners come first.
Right.
And I think this committee needs to be comfortable that that is happening, and if there are no more gaps, then obviously I think that helps us in deciding how to vote on non-homeowner issues.
And perhaps phrasing it, there are no more gaps is, obviously there are still gaps, but are there the kind of gaps where a city program can make a
Right.
positive
Yeah,
impact?
there are.
Because there's a difference in,
Yeah, and that's also something too that this committee can also, come up with ideas or thoughts on gaps too, you know, because we've been asked in the past too, if we have any ideas to bring forward.
And what you're saying is that they've not been acknowledged?
That's correct.
Okay.
And I've been
Well, we need to
suggesting
examine
too,
that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying we need to examine that if that's the case.
Can you bring some examples next time? Well, for me, I don't know what
Yeah.
you're talking about, so, I mean,
I
I don't
can
know
meet
what
with you
program
privately
you're
if you
talking
want.
about.
I would like not to wait till February because we don't have any idea when the council's gonna be sneaking in a vote here. We didn't know this was coming up, and I think we need to weigh in on it beforehand like we did with the fire station and the library and time check.
But you do realize the council's under no obligation to pay any attention to what we say,
I
right?
understand we have absolutely no authority, but, I mean, that's the purpose of the committee. I'm more blatant about it than you are. We have no authority at all. But I mean, we have, you know, we did do that for library, fire station, and time check, and rec center. And I think that's, you know, a big reason why every other committee votes to give the recommendation and, you know, to say if we think it's the intent of the voters to have used this money, in this case $13 million, for rebuilding a facility that's already back.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. We appreciate it. One thing, you know, we're going to move on and discuss and vote as far as our position on lost funds for two things, two additional things yet tonight, the new animal control facility and the potential on the new public works facility. And one thing I wanted to do, shift over to this side of the room and do two things. One, we all have had Councilman Winnicke involved as our liaison for a number of years now, and we thanked him as he was outgoing at our last meeting. And I wanted to, as far as our group, our committee, welcome Ann Poe, who now is our liaison for the City Council. So I wanted to welcome you from the Lost Oversight Committee. Welcome. Glad to have you. And at regular meetings, this is a special called meeting, but at regular meetings, normally you'll be on the agenda to give us just an update if there's anything new going on as far as the lost from the City Council's standpoint. And then also...
Can I just say one thing? I'd like to thank everybody for all the work they've been doing over the last, how long has it been, a couple of years? But you guys have been doing a great job, so thank you very much for your hard work.
Yeah, and then the reverse is true too. Then we hope you'll be our spokesperson to the council when,
Yeah, be happy to.
on what we do here and what our opinions are.
Yep.
So, welcome again.
Thank you.
Before we go ahead and discuss those two items and vote on those two items, I also, since we have a number of visitors here tonight, one, thank you, welcome, and just wanted to open the floor if any of you have any comments concerning our group this evening also.
I'd like to talk. Do you want me to move up, or am I
Up to
fine
you.
here? First off, I'd like to say I know you guys are getting ready to vote on the animal shelter and some other projects, and I'm under the understanding, of course, that 423B of the Iowa Code of Iowa is that you guys need to complete the projects or the specification of the ballot language before you can start using local option sales tax for urban renewal projects, such as the animal shelter. And so, bringing that to light, and as you guys are talking about gaps, I'm here tonight to represent some gaps that I'd like to talk about myself. These gaps have been brought up many times to the City Council. They've been addressed when city staff, city management have been there. Nobody seems to want to turn around and address the gap, right? And this is what the local option sales tax was for. It was sold to us under the premise that 90% of this money would be used to acquire flooded houses and rehabilitate flooded houses, as is quoted by Monica Vernon in the Gazette, right? We saw this on the news. Mayor Corbett, same thing. This is the way it was promoted to us. years have gone by, and as you know, I was on the local option sales tax no team because of these simple factors. The money was not spent for houses to rehabilitate or to acquire them. Not 90%, not 50%, maybe 7%. Yet they turned around and they said, we spent 90% acquiring and rehabilitating flooded properties. All right, flooded properties are not flooded houses. Those are two different things. And so we have a major gap going on in the buyout acquisition areas where these people have been denied assistance from Jumpstart, from volunteers, from any other source of funding. And this is what this local option sales tax money was intended to be used for in the first place. And so I have a list, a small one at this moment, of some immediate people, and I have a lot of other people that I know that are already in these gaps, and I'll describe some of them. I have Matthew Robinette on 5th Street Northwest. His place is probably about 85% done. He had partial flood insurance, had to wait for the first 30% to come in to get 50% of his place done, to get the next 30% in to come to the 85. At this point in time, Matt Robinette's place, it's 85% complete, right? No assistance from anybody else. There's no FEMA. There's no Jumpstart. We're in a buyout acquisition. We're being coerced out of our homes during this whole process by being denied volunteers and Jumpstart assistance and these other things, right? So now, in order to get some kind of retribution on the situation that's been dealt with down in these people, we essentially have some requests out of this local option sales tax committee. And we would request that you fill the gaps that are in our areas. My house needs work still. Dennis's house needs work. Donna and Rick's needs work. I got Mike Lane over on 22nd Avenue behind Checktown. His house still needs finished. None of these people have got the assistance that they should have gotten along the way, and it's this local option sales tax meeting's job to be filling those gaps with the local option sales tax money that you've already received. We've been asking for this. We've been saying we need help. We've been at the city councils over and over. I've been on this for 3 years. And so I'm at the point now where I'm coming to these meetings. I'm watching you guys talk about filling gaps. And here once again is the gap that we keep pointing out over and over and over again. And I'm to the point where if you guys are not willing to fill the gap, then I'm willing to express the violation of the 423B of the Iowa Code if you guys continue to spend money on animal shelters and other projects before you fill these gaps. And I think you know, you and I have met, I'm a serious person. I do my research, I understand my stuff, and I bring this stuff to the table. I put all my cards out there. I got nothing to hide. We need help. There's probably 9-10 houses right in that area that need help. I got other examples. Craig Sharp on A Avenue Northwest. Probably saw the signs of cardboard in his front yard as he was complaining about the plumber that did this terrible work inside his house. This was a Jumpstart program that did the work on his house. Jumpstart inspectors came in and approved his house, wrote the guy the second check, and the guy ran off with the money. There Craig is, stuck with a loan and a lien on his property for a forgivable loan for money that was essentially loaned to him that he should have got the value. But he was forced to take a Jumpstart certified on a list contractor, which really meant nothing more than you had to be, not unbarrable and registered with workforce development. But you had to be on the list, which essentially to me was unfair competition for contractors all out through the area. So they gave him a contractor on the list that came in, does garbage work, and then turned around and paid the guy anyway. Craig had to go sue the contractor because Jumpstart wouldn't do anything for him. After all, they didn't lose a penny. It wasn't their money, right? Craig's the one that's out of it because he's got a lien on his house, and now he's got a tub that's crooked. He's got water lines running up through his stairwell going upstairs when they should be in the wall, and he's got a pipe that he's going to run his head into every time he goes down the basement steps, all from one plumber. He sues the guy. The judge fines in for Craig, because obviously the work's bad. Even though it's essentially code, it's not good work, it's not what you pay for. But collecting money out of these contractors, after they've already belted up, sold the business, collected all the jump start money, I mean, they fold them up. They come in, they sweep up money, don't do the work, drop the business, or start another one 3 weeks later under a different name, you know? And so there's a gap. There's a guy there that, has gotten totally reamed over. Lon Whitford on 11th Street Northwest, same type of thing. He paid the contractors, they got a hold of the first half of the money, they literally did more damage than they did good. They tore out his basement steps, they put them back in with one of the risers 2 inches different than the rest of the steps, won't even meet code. Now it's going to cost more money to rip the stuff out that they did bad and go in and fix his house right. Yet, in his case, he didn't sign the second half. He didn't sign off. So Jumpstart still has the second half of the money sitting there. Now, this is in a litigation kind of process thing, trying to figure out what to do next, because obviously the first contractor got half the money and only did about 20% of the work, and so now there's not enough money left there to complete, Lon Whitford's house out of what is remaining in the Jumpstart program. So these things are gaps that you guys could be filling with this local option sales tax money that would actually fit the ballot language according to the way it's supposed to be spent. And I would appreciate if you'd do that.
Let me respond on a couple things. One, keep in mind that, our group...
Oversight committee, I know.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
So we don't develop programs, we don't set that up. But what I would ask from you is, if you get an opportunity, if you want to put any of these gap ideas in black and white and get them to the committee, one thing the committee can do is take, and I think Lisa's working on some things, but when we hear these kind of things, if we can get them in black and white, and then as a committee, I've been told by a few different council people that if we have any ideas for gaps, we can forward those on, and one thing that may or may not help, we can only do what we can do, but if we vote that the group feels it's a good gap, we can kind of at least put that behind the request as we shoot that off to council.
Well, do you want me to put in a proposal, or do you want me to put in a request to write a program?
I have the construction zone in Greenway listed within here, as you mentioned it, the things, I remember what I have in here, but the thing is, city council never, ever voted to prevent funding sources to go to those people in the Greenway construction zone. That was all third-party administrator and the state. And I don't think it's right. When they got their FEMA money, they moved forward, rehab, because there was such uncertainty about buyouts or rehabilitation assistance. So they used their FEMA money to try to start rehabbing, and the third-party administrators in the state denied any assistance, which is basically coercion, and then they used their FEMA money. But the city council voted in the zones, but they in December voting, but they did not ever say those two zones are not eligible for funds.
And I don't want to get too caught up into the details, because I'm not going to pretend to know what those details are. But, and I don't think it has to be anything, fancy or official program or anything, but anything you can put together in black and white and forward to us. The one thing we can do is we can, as a committee, vote on those things or forward those to council, and at least it comes from us also, and maybe that helps. But we'd be more than willing to entertain those. It's one thing for us to talk about it, but if we have something in black and white, then we have something we can pass on. So that's what I'd ask for.
Oh, no problem.
Okay.
I don't think it needs to be a full-fledged program, but
No, I think just
just
a general idea, maybe a couple examples, and maybe a proposed
Yep, a
way to
proposition, yeah.
satisfy those.
No problem.
When it is designed.
I'll get it to you personally.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you very much. When we move on, as far as the committee will tackle, we'll just take them in order here as far as new animal control facility. Again, what council has voted on there is an obligation of $3.55 million of lost funds to go towards the new animal control facility. I'll just read the ballot language, which we must look at that for and vote. 10% for property tax relief and 90% for the acquisition and rehabilitation of flood-damaged housing caused by the flooding of 2008, and matching funds for federal flood dollars to assist with flood recovery or flood protection, which that is at the bottom of our agenda sheet this evening. So I'll open that up for any discussion as far as animal control.
I'd like to go back in the bylaws where it says what our responsibility is. The primary responsibility provided by this resolution is to assess whether expenditures of the tax proceeds fit the uses approved by the voters. That campaign was sold on the idea that this money was going to be going to help the homeowners, the residential. That's how it was sold. It didn't say, fancy projects. It didn't say that we can acquire property at 5 times the assessed value to help their millionaire friends become richer. It didn't say, as in with True North, that our locked money, $4 million, will go to make up the gap between the appraised price and the purchase price. We didn't get to name our purchase price. It was 107% of the assessed value. True North was assessed at 1.5. And I'm saying this because it's an example of the public works. True North was assessed at 1.5. Council voted in February 2010 to go with that size. In March, True North bought the property.
Okay, well, hang on, we're not talking about True North.
Yes, but I wanted to have it as an example of how the city council is using money for public works facilities. That was for the library.
And which we've voted on already.
And council completely led astray the public. Even in Monica's debate, she came right out and said we couldn't go back to the library, FEMA wouldn't let us. That is a blatant lie. FEMA wanted us to go back. So we're not even getting the truth from our own city council people. And it wasn't until 3 days before the city council voted September 28, 2010, to buy True North for $7.5 million. Wasn't until 3 days before the mayor ran down to Kansas City, still appealing to let us relocate. So $4 million of our lost money went to a library that we didn't even need to spend the money on.
Okay, but we've discussed that and voted on that already.
I know. I'm just using that as an example of how incompetent the city council is using our lost money. Oh, even the fire station, they're underfunded. I'd rather see our lost money go to personnel.
Any thoughts?
Does the public have any thoughts on this specific issue?
No, we had public discussion.
I do.
I'm afraid we opened and closed the public input for tonight. But I did want to, normally we do it at the end, but I did want to do it kind of in the middle of the day before we did vote.
All right. Sure.
So they're wanting,
Well, I think it's I'm going to kind of keep, my opinion, for whatever it's been now, 3 years, it's pretty much the same. When
Nothing to do with
library
opinion.
came up, when the rec center came up, and the fire station came up in the past, my opinion is the intent of the voters, without a doubt, was to take care of flooded homeowners definitely priority one. So that, to me, is what the intent of the voters were, or was, is. When you look at the ballot language, you have matching funds for federal flood dollars to assist with flood recovery or flood protection. So, can an argument be made that these public, for lack of a better word, infrastructure or buildings fit that ballot language? Yes, obviously, we've been through that before with these prior issues that have come forward. So I'm still the same place I've always been, is before money is used on public facilities, I would always feel much more comfortable that there's enough money from this 5 years' worth that has been set aside to fill homeowner gaps. I still feel that should be priority one. And once we get to the place where we feel, you know, and you got the estimated, you got the obligated, you got the de-obligated from the program, so, you know, it's an ebb and flow. But are we there yet? You know, to me, that's the finish line. Homeowners have been taken care of, then we can move on to the secondary part of the ballot language. So I don't know, are we there yet?
I haven't been on them, on both sides. For the homeowners and for the infrastructure. But, and I totally agree, we have to take care of both, with number one being for the homeowners, your property owners, residential owners.
Now, that being said, obviously our vote doesn't mean much, because it's going to happen.
They'll do what they want
either way. But, obviously, I think that's what our role is to vote what we think as a committee is correct, and that's the balancing act, ballot language versus intent of the voters.
Well, and we, pushed the vote through immediately after, really fast after the flood, before we knew what all the government things were gonna do, so that colored our whole, we didn't know we were gonna get all those millions and millions of dollars in for some of those programs, so that's why the ballot was written the way it was.
Well, actually, we had several million dollars from CDBG before that lost vote even came up. They were spending it on developers before they were paying for voluntary acquisition in the CDBG zone.
So I think basically, for me, that's what the judgment call is kind of been my stance on that.
Well, and that's why I wanted to cover some of the gaps. It's certainly not complete. I got quite a few left here, but I just wanted to let the committee know, especially since Joe is here, that there are an awful lot of gaps still.
Any other discussion? All right, well, then we'll call a vote. So we will be voting on whether the committee views lost funds being used for new animal control facility, whether we approve of that or disapprove of that. So those who believe are comfortable with that, vote yes. And those that aren't, nay. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,
Nay.
nay. Isn't that fun?
That's a nay.
I don't know if we can rehash a whole lot. I think that's
Well, I just want to point out
all in
that
the same area.
our city council here is voting to spend money, and they're not even discussing where we're going to get it. The $13 million gap is going to come from local. And they didn't even
There
discuss
again, that's outside of our purview. Our purview just, if they come to loss for money, do we feel that is right or wrong?
It'd be more easier to say it's right. It'd be more easier to say it's right if they were spending conservatively.
Well, there again, that's not our call to make. I mean, we
was thinking that is your call,
on those.
to determine if it's right. And if
Well,
it's,
that's what we
yeah.
voted on yesterday.
well, and if she's over there saying they're spending money frivolously and inefficiently, isn't that wrong?
That's
And
one
so why would,
person's- that's
so
one
why would you
person's
vote
view.
for it if it's wrong?
I'm afraid public comment is
Right.
over. We need to conduct our business.
You're kidding me.